Hello, everybody, and welcome to the FloTrack podcast, Paris edition, presented by Wonderful Pistachios. I'm Livek Pone, joined with Corey Mall in studio. We got popcorn, thanks to the wrestling guys who went to film right before us, so they left us some popcorn. So I'm bringing out the popcorn moment, but y'all, it was a wild day, just wild. The men's 100 meters showcase one of the fastest 100-meter finals in Olympic history.
Arguably the biggest night of the track and field events in the Olympics 100-meter championship, right?
Right.
If you've watched sprint, you know it's the one main event.
Yes.
And it's over.
And it's over, just like that. But you guys, it's not just going to be Corey and I in studio today. We actually have our friends who are in Paris. We have Ashley Tishens and Brian Dybel who are calling in. They're literally sitting right outside the stadium. And I asked them, I was like, how much time do y'all have? Because it's like 11:40 their time. And they're like, until they get kicked out. So they're joining us today. You guys, it's so good to see you. How is Paris? Just describe that.
Can we not bury the lead? Noah Lyles just won the 100-meter championship.
Wait, but first, how are they doing in Paris? How are the vibes in Paris?
They look great.
How are the vibes?
We can't start off with how we're doing. We look fine. I think we need to cut to the chase. I agree.
Well,
Right,
well,
Brian?
I was alluding to the vibes. How are the vibes in Paris? Like, how are y'all doing?
The vibes are incredible. I mean, from Grant, there's all kinds of things. The vibes have just been amazing. But tonight was definitely, I think, the pinnacle so far, the highlight. Just, I got goosebumps leading up into that men's 100-meter race. It was just phenomenal to start things off.
You were, nerves. We're back here in Austin. We're feeling the nerves. Our heart rate's going up. Everyone in the stadium, heart rate's going up before the final, right?
Oh, absolutely. I think we both turned to each other and we were both I feel like we're more nervous than all these guys about to get in the starting blocks and run in this 100-meter Olympic final, right? I think even just so the media area, right, is so it's all along in the stands in the home stretch, that 100-meter stretch, and everyone's sitting at desks. However, not everyone was sitting, everyone was standing. The entire media area was on their feet, ready to watch this 100 final, because let's be real, it was so anticipated because, there were so many factors at play and so many big players at play. And so I think just that energy was crazy. And then they were playing this intense music and stuff like that, right? Going in, they were holding them in the blocks for so long. But I don't know, my heart rate probably was at at least over 100.
I don't know how as an athlete, obviously there's the big stages and there's world championships you've been to. I just felt the energy here, the way they built it up was it felt like 5 minutes worth of intense music playing, this light show beforehand. As every athlete came out, their name was announced. Everybody that was came into the stadium today had bands on their arm, and they held them up in the air, and they turned colors. So for when Noah Lyles was announced, it was red, white, and blue stand. When Jamaican athletes were announced, it was yellow and green bands. It was just something else. It was completely wild. And then they're out there standing there for minutes, it felt beforehand. And I was getting nervous. I feel the whole media area, we talked about when I went down to the mix zone after, everybody was the nerves, the tension in the air was palpable. You could feel it. Just a crazy, start there.
Yeah. I want to talk about I know you guys described the energy and the vibes there, and while we were watching even the 10K with the men's, we could hear the roars through the television screen, and it was just that constant buzz of energy. How would you compare that night with Grant Fisher to what we saw tonight with Noah Lyles crossing that finish line? Was it a steady buzz as soon as the gun went off? Just describe the aftermath of just what the fans were feeling inside of the stadium in Paris.
See, it was interesting, right? Because you compare it to the men's 10K. The men's 10K, those last at least 4 laps, that stadium was roaring. It was insane. It was unlike anything I've ever seen, especially for a 10K. I think the 100, it was a little bit different at first because it was such a close finish, right? At first, no one knew who won, right? So, obviously the buzz was there, but it wasn't an immediate eruption because for a while we were still trying to figure, like on the scoreboard in the screen or in the stadium, it said like photo. Like it took a second for us to realize what the results were. But I mean, the second that gun went off, like bam, like everyone was cheering. Like it was intense.
Yeah, I think the photo finish there, like everybody's just kind of waiting and looking, and it's actually funny, because Noah said like he didn't think that he won, and he actually told
Kashane Thompson.
Thank you. He told Kashane Thompson, he's like, I think you got it. Like he said that. And he said after in his post race interview to the mixed zone people, he's like, yeah, I told him that. Like he said, it's like for the first time in my life, I didn't think that I had it. Like for the first time, I didn't think that I had won. And then my name popped up, and I was just ecstatic. Like I was, because he didn't think he had it, and like it was hard to tell, to be honest. From even like our angle, we were further back. I thought Fred Curley had it.
That's what I thought too. Yeah, because we were about like 40-meter mark around. Just
yeah,
about, like,
I'd say we were a little bit less than halfway.
And from where I was standing, like just looking at it, I agree. I thought it was Fred Curley, but it was also really close. I did see Noah Lyles come there at the end too, and it was really close to see. I know obviously like when you look at the photo, very clearly Noah Lyles like just a little bit has his torso ahead of everyone else, and so he got the win there. But yeah, I mean, I think it was just a combination of like, I mean, that's something that if you see that and you witness that in person, that's something you're not going to forget, right? Like that is, I mean, 0.005 of a second separating first and second, like that's just crazy. I mean, it's hard to put into words.
Let's go over the specifics because we really haven't discussed it yet, but Noah Lyles 9.79 to win the final here. He was not in the lead until the very last steps against Kashane Thompson. There is a race analysis that's going around on Twitter, and it basically has Noah in 8th place all the way up through 40 meters before he starts to make up ground. He was in 2nd through 90 meters, obviously wins. Curley, as you mentioned, was 2nd all the way through up until the end, and he finished 3rd. But Noah 9.79, beating Thompson, who had owned the world leading time ahead of time. Everybody thought Kashane had this on lock. So how surprising is it, Olivia, that Noah Lyles, a man who had won all year, won the biggest championship of the season, it shouldn't really be a surprise, right?
I'm not surprised because we all know how Noah Lyles competes in the 100. It takes him a while to get going. He is a closer. We know that. So I was one of those people that was cheering for Kashane Thompson, and I was like, he was looking very strong through the rounds. But I honestly thought Kashane had just enough separation. But of course, here comes Noah, just bulldozing through like he always does those last few meters. Are you guys surprised, Brian and Ashley, by any of this?
I'll go first. We all know how my predictions were going into this 100. I didn't think Noah Lyles was going to win. Especially then after seeing him not win his first round heat, not win his semifinal heat, I was a little nervous, like he got beat by Oblique Seville, just like an hour or two before running that final. And he looked a little surprised, at the finish line when he lost to Oblique there. So I think, and I think about this too, right? Like we all know, there's also, to bring out some more stats, if you look at the reaction times, right, from the final, Noah tied with Taboga for the slowest reaction time. And we all know that Noah Lyles has always, he's been trying to work on his start. It's not been the best start. That's just kind of the theme. And, you look back, for example, at the women's 100, right? Carrie doesn't have the best start. And, through the rounds, through the first round, the semis, and the final, she had like one of the slowest reaction times, and she didn't win gold. So I thought maybe that's going to carry through into the men's 100. But, I mean, shoot, when Noah Lyles hits that top end speed, like he can catch anyone. And so I think that, you can't knock him, right? Like, I mean, he just won the overall titles, like the ultimate prize, right? The world's fastest man. And was I surprised? Yes. But kudos to him. It was like honestly one of the craziest races.
Just insane. Absolutely insane. I'm still speechless because we were screaming. It was funny because our producers were filming a wrestling show. They were like, "Were y'all screaming earlier?" I was like, "Yeah, it was the men's hundreds. That's why we were screaming." Yeah. So just insane.
Let's be completely honest. Like Noah. So Brian, you mentioned this about the race and how your adrenaline was up. Obviously, it was a pressure-soaked environment. Really, only thing I feel like would compare to a 100-meter Olympic final would be like if you're in a Super Bowl and your team is trailing by 6 points and you need a touchdown on the very last play. Like that is a 100-meter final pressure right there. Do you agree with that? Like it's over in 10 seconds, right? You have to win the race. Like there's nothing like that out there in sports.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. You have to put it together when it matters, and I think that's what Noah was able to do. Even though he maybe had the slightly slower start, like he was able to pull the rest of the race together to get to where he needed to be, and rose to the occasion. You know, he's been saying it all along. Like, I want to win 4 golds. I want to win 4 golds, and to put it out there, and then to come through with number 1, which I think he would consider as one of his hardest. I mean, obviously there's things about the 4x4 which we'll be maybe divulge into later, but with his 100, that he calls the 200 his wife, the 100 being that one that he's just kind of searching for and going after, and I think he was able to prove to some things that even though he talks a lot of smack, he's backing it up today with the times and with the performance.
That's what I wanted to bring up. Bri Benjamin just tweeted something after the 100 meters, and I don't know if we can pull this up, but I think it's worthwhile mentioning here because of everything that kind of top athletes in the track space go through on the positive side and the negative side. Ollie Hoare talked to y'all in the mix zone, I think either yesterday or today, about drawing some negative feedback on social media, and he had to delete social media as a result. So Rye tweeted, "Watch these boys speak confidence and possibility into what they do daily. In the face of all that hate, man. Truly inspirational. See y'all tomorrow at Fred Curley, at Noah Lyles." So for as much confidence that Noah Lyles has, I'm sure he has to deal with that other side where people are spitting hate his way. I will say myself, yesterday I was like, no, I didn't appreciate your quote in the mix zone. Like,
You did say that, yeah.
there is criticism that they face, and for him to deal with that pressure and to understand it and win in the face of it is remarkable. I think he deserves the win, and I got to give the man credit for winning an Olympic title.
I know. Backed up with Worlds last year, Olympic this year, so Noah's just on the train. So now, 200.
Yeah, that's the question.
4x1. He's been talking about a 4x4. So
do we get 4? Do we get 4?
Do we get 4?
Does this set up 4?
I don't know, honestly. I see 3 for sure. 200 4x1. If we can get the stick around. I don't know what that looks like, but
Ashley, do you see 4?
Ashley?
Okay. Corey, I know you and I have talked about this before, and if he wins the 100, the 200, and the 4x1, he gets put on the 4x4 and he wins, and they probably win gold there. I think that's how it works, because if he already has 3 golds, they're going to want that storyline, right? Like the USATF, the powers that be, right? Like that's something they're going to want to push out, and that's something he's been trying to push out too. Not saying necessarily that, I mean, obviously he's only run 1 4x4, and we do have a 4x4 relay pool of, gentlemen that, placed highly at the Olympic trials, but, I think if he does win 3 golds, that's my prediction. I think they will put him on the 4x4 if he wins 3 golds going into it.
Brian, your thoughts? Or do you agree with Ashley?
I think it's what I it's hard to tell. I don't know. I mean, I think he can do it. Like, I know he can run a 400. It's just interesting to me, like, the way they chose to keep Quincy off. Like, I know they say he's inexperienced. Like, it's like, well, they put Noah on after running all these rounds and everything, and then, like, put the chances that he could be tired. I mean, I know that's, like, a crazy thing, like, to say, like, he could be tired. But, like, I don't know. It's like, why risk something that and put it in the hands of somebody, like, not to say that he didn't earn it, but, like, he didn't run a 400, It's like, it's just, I mean, I want to see it for the storyline, personally. Like, I think it would be cool, but, like, do I think it's the smartest thing for Team USA? Personally, I don't, and that's my kind of take on it.
That
I'd
takes me
like
back
to see
to Leo's comment.
Right.
When he was with us in studio, he said, as every time I've been on the USA team, the main objective is, who are the 4 that's going to help us get the gold?
But he also said, a little known fact is that oftentimes 3 members of the team choose the 4th. So
Yeah.
in choosing the selection of the team, you kind of lean on some of the guys who have earned that right already. So we'll see if he builds some goodwill toward the end of the Olympic Games. Obviously, cross the bridge when you get there if he wins the 2. If they win the 4x1, then you cross that bridge and you see what the chances are. But this was the hardest one. This was the absolute hardest one to win, and he did it.
Yep, and I think it works in his favor too of having it one of the first events too. Like just thinking about his journey with the 100, 200, 4x1, like you just get the hardest one out of the way. And I don't want to say he's on cruise control, but it takes less of that pressure off, which is, you can breathe a little bit. But the 100 wasn't the only final that took place this evening. The women's high jump. And I can only imagine what the vibes were like when the world record holder, Yaroslavia Muhuchi, grabbed that Olympic gold from Ukraine. And what was wild is Australia and Ukraine had the top 3, I guess you can say, finishers, because Australia's Nikolia Uslagers finished with 2 meters. And then there was a tie for 3rd. It was Ukraine and Australia again. So you had Irina Jusharenko and then Eleanor Patterson, who tied for that bronze. And then Vashti Cunningham just misses the podium, finishing 5th as she cleared 1.95 meters. Brian and Ashley, just what were your thoughts when you're just kind of seeing the high jump competition unfold?
Yeah, I mean, from my perspective, being in the stands and watching it happen, the crowd erupted for Yaroslava, right? Like, she's the world record holder. She said that earlier this season, and that was a world record that had been held for such a long time. So I think a lot of people obviously thought that she could come in here and win that Olympic gold, and she got it done. And I think, like you mentioned, it's cool. It's interesting, right? Like 2 Ukrainian athletes, 2 Australians on the podium, a tie for 3rd. Like, that's just a very entertaining competition, right? And then I know me and Brian had a chance to talk with Nicola in the silver medal position at the Puma Mob House earlier this week, and I kind of asked her. She had a lot of insight about how women's high jump right now is at such a different level, right? Like, elevating each other, right? And I kind of asked her. I was like, hey, like, y'all are competitors, but it seems like y'all are not only friends, but you kind of learn from each other as well, And she said that's what she thinks makes that sport better and her other competitors better. And I think we kind of saw a little bit of that today. I think with the the gold, silver, and then the tie for bronze. It was definitely everyone in the crowd was cheering him on and stuff. It was pretty cool.
I was in the media mix zone, which I've been calling the dungeon because it's 6 floors down and underneath the stadium practically. But so I didn't get to watch much of the high jump competition, but I do know that as the 100-meter guys were all coming through, the high jump women were also coming through, and there was the biggest contingent of Ukrainian media, as well as other international press, there to talk to, obviously, the Ukrainian contingent that medaled, because they were super excited and really excited. And obviously with everything going on in the world with Ukraine, there was a lot of interest and intrigue based on the story. So from my perspective, that was kind of interesting to eavesdrop on a little bit, and just how they're representing their country on the broader stage with everything going on back home, and what it means for them to be here and be able to do that in the circumstances that their country's in.
Total vibes. Just vibes for Ukraine. Definitely well warranted. Good stuff for them. And I think special recognition to Vashti.
Yes.
Rebounded from that first round where she struggled a little bit, and she looked very, very good. Cleared 195 meters on her first attempt, and I think that is good to see from her, because she came in and she was locked in over those first 3 heights. Missed at 198, but obviously I think she had a good rebound from her first round.
Yeah. Speaking of first attempts, the men's hammer throw was very interesting too. Ethan Katzberg of Canada won the gold on his first throw, 84.12, and he only had 2 good throws today, his first and his second, which he threw 82.28 meters, and then all the rest of it were just X's across the board. But it got the job done. So that was impressive.
We talked about this the other day. All you really need is that 1 mark in a field event. I think there's a lot of factors when you think about being in that circle, being in the ring, needing to get all the elements correct, and to get it within the sector. When you do that, is just phenomenal. And he was the only guy over 80 meters
Yes.
today. Nobody else was even close. So
Yeah.
epic performance from the Canadian, and gold medal to show for it.
Yeah. Hungary's Benz Lyles through 79.97 meters, upgraded the world bronze to the Olympic silver, and then another athlete from Ukraine, Kokon, through 79.39 meters for a new season's best. And then representing the U.S., Rudy Winkler finishes 6th, and with his first throw through 77.92 meters. So that was quite impressive. Brian or Ashley, is there anything you would like to add from the Hammer before we talk about kind of the big highlights and memorable moments that also happened today?
I mean, shoot, sometimes you just need one big throw, right? And that's exactly what happened. 84, 84.12 was the winning throw. I think we saw on the board in there the Olympic record is like 84.80 or something like that. So that's a massive throw. And like you mentioned, no one even came close. Everyone else was at 79 meters or so. So heck of a performance there.
So again, my perception was from the mixed zone area, and when it happened though, there was some Canadian press that automatically came down. They were buzzing, they were excited, and again, more Canadian press than I've seen the entire games. Like even Andre DeGrasse, when he was out in the semis, like there was more people for Ethan than there was for Andre DeGrasse, which I was kind of surprised. But obviously, I mean, he had a huge throw, so kudos to him to be able to get that at such a big time and big stage to be able to throw one and put one together like that. So
Love that. Second half of our show, we're going to kind of dive into our memorable moments and the highlights. Let's start with one of the biggest news. There was a couple, but I think the very first one on the deck, Sharica Jackson scratches from the 200. Ashley and Brian, describe what that moment was like when the news got to y'all that this occurred. What was the setting like for you?
You go ahead.
I mean, so it's just funny because like you're just for me, I'm down in the mixed zone area, and I'm just with all the other press and things, and there's a buzz like, did you see this? Did you hear that? Did you hear that? And then people are trying to confirm facts, and they're trying to get the knowledge and get the information that people know about it, and obviously for this case, obviously it was on the stats sheet and on the stats boards, but it was like a little bit of a buzz. It's kind of like, oh my gosh, like did this really happen? Like that's a thing? Oh wow, like this is crazy. Like what, she scratched? No way. Like how, come on, like what? So yeah, it's just kind of wild to be involved in right in the mix.
Yeah, I feel like honestly that like while it was kind of shocking, at the same time it wasn't shocking. Like earlier in this week before the athletics events even started, Sharica Jackson withdrew from the 100 meters and she's like, I'm only going to focus on the 200, and then she drops out of the 200. And if you look at her, so the last time she raced was in July, which was at the Hungarian Athletics Grand Prix, and she pulled up in the 200. Then her camp said that it's okay, it's just they said it, quote, it's a hamstring cramp or something like that. But I think this season she's probably, obviously this is just me based on some of those facts, my opinion, like she's been dealing with injury and stuff like that, and then was forced to, after warm-ups, withdraw from the 200.
Mm-hmm. My heart breaks because I wasn't sure how this was going to play out for her. I know, like she told us, like focusing on the 2, scratching from the 100, and then you wake up to this kind of news from, the crack of dawn. You're like your brain's barely functioning at 3-4 o'clock in the morning. You're like, did I really just hear that, or did I make that up in my head? So it just breaks my heart.
This is only speculative based on what we know, but it feels like that injury was much more than we were led on to believe. Obviously, you do all you can to get to the Olympic Games, and I think she went all the way up to that heat, hoping that she would be ready to go. The Daily Mail Australia actually spoke with a former Olympian, John Stephenson, who was able to see Sharica Jackson at the Olympic warm-up area or just the village, and he said that she did everything she possibly could to make it to the Olympic Games. So, she was trying.
Yeah.
Jamaica's a special country in that, like, they really care for their athletes. They want their athletes to succeed, and sometimes there's a lot of pressure put on them, but ultimately I think the athletes want to do right for their country, and that's why she came all the way here to Paris to see if she could do it.
Yes.
Ultimately didn't happen, but she tried.
She did try. All right, all the Americans made it through. Gabby Thomas with the fastest times from the round 22:20. Brittany Brown 22:38. Mackenzie Long 22:55. Again, just putting in the work. Execution's the first round, so good to go. Brian, I think, or maybe it might have been Ashley, one of y'all said something about Julian Alfred possibly running on, was it 2 hours of sleep?
That was on the broadcast. That was on the broadcast.
Oh, it was on the broadcast. Okay.
Well, also, I mean, she also told us in the mix zone too. It was, I think it was before her. What point in the day was that? The day all blends together. At one point, she told us she was running on 2 hours of sleep before those semis, and then she came through after the medal ceremony and gave it a longer interview about what it was like on the podium and things like that. So I think that was in the morning session when she told us about, the 2 hours of sleep. That's the only quote she gave. I think she kind of looked a little tired at that point, and then after the medal ceremony, though, she seemed a little more peppy, a little more perky. Maybe she took a little nap and caught up with herself to be ready to go.
Yeah, I mean, I can't even imagine like the rush of winning an Olympic 100-meter gold title, especially, and then having to wake up like literally the next day. I mean, you think about it, right? You got to go to doping, you got to do the press conferences, you got to talk with the media. I mean, you got to celebrate a little bit too.
Well,
like,
yeah, and I mean,
in a way, and so then to turn around and have to run at 200, it's interesting. It makes you think like, what was with the scheduling here? I don't know.
I mean, we're here pretty late night at the stadium, but I can imagine being an athlete. Like last night, they had press conferences. It seemed like until like midnight, like 12:30, like our time here, and I can imagine having to be here as an athlete and then turn around and compete again. And also you have to go back to the village, and there's all these things that you have to take into account. So, pretty tight turnaround for Julian for sure, but she was able to get things done.
I will say very professional to go all through that and to still take time to do interviews, to go to the press conference. True professional right there.
Yeah. Were there any other athletes that caught your attention from the prelims of the 200?
Favor of Philly,
yes,
22-2 from Nigeria. I think there's some, actually I don't know if you want to get into this, but there's a little bit of like controversy with her delegation and not being able to run the 100. So to come out here and run 22-2 was good to see from her. And then, even though you don't have Sharica, you do have both Jamaicans pushing through to the next round. Lene Tava-Thomas from USC, 22-7-0, and Naisha Berger, 22-5. So Jamaica will have presence there in the next round.
Mm-hmm. One other athlete I want to highlight before we move on to the men's 400, Adeja Hodge, no longer high schooler. She's going to be going to Georgia next year. But she ran the 200, will enter into the repechage round because she didn't get the automatic big Q. So we still have another chance to see her do amazing things. Stephen Gardner, that's the next big topic highlight from the day. Scratches from the 400 meters. This was the gold medalist, and another one breaks my heart. Do you guys have any feedback or any thoughts once you heard this news as well?
I think when this happened, then I started reflecting, man, there have been a lot of big names that have had to scratch or withdraw from meets. I think back first, Shelly and Fraser Price. Well, first, technically, it was Sharica withdrawing from the 100, and then, she withdrew from the 200 as well, and now Stephen Gardner. I think it just shows that this sport's tough, you get injuries, you get hiccups, and it's really hard to perform consistently at the Olympic level, even if you are, a legend in the sport, an Olympic medalist or, a world medalist. It's tough and it can be heartbreaking. And I think that's really in that moment, that's what I was thinking. So it's just, definitely unfortunate to not see him, get in the blocks here and compete at the Olympics.
Just, wow, breaks my heart.
It is interesting. I don't know how you would change the protocol here, but to scratch from an Olympic round minutes before, it's just a little odd. You don't see that in most sports. Most sports have sort of injury reports ahead of time, right?
Yeah.
And they're claiming who's injured. So I don't know how you could change that necessarily, but it feels like to have a little bit of lead time for these kinds of actions, I don't know, would be helpful, I think. Right, even if you substitute somebody in, unless it's an injury that happens right before.
Yeah.
It seems like there should be some protocols in place.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. But nonetheless, the Americans punched their ticket. Michael Norman leading the rounds with the season's best of 44.10.
Michael.
Our guy Michael Norman, and then Quincy Hall 44.28. Chris Bailey got 13th, but got the big Q. 44.89. Corey, were there any other athletes that you were impressed by from just the first round?
Well, I wanted to ask these two about Michael Norman. I think the biggest questions coming out of the trials was Michael Norman ready to go? I mean, I think there were some doubts there after he did not perform from what we normally see from him. So what were your thoughts seeing Michael Norman really come out here and show and make a statement?
I mean, shoot, I had lots of doubts. I had lots of doubts after watching him at the trials. I was like, oh gosh, like he's injured. It may not go well at the Olympic. I don't know. I don't know what I was thinking. But then as I watched him rounding the track and just looking so like smooth, and when I saw the clock and saw 44:10 tied for the 4th fastest time in the world so far in 2024, all those doubts completely went away. I'm like, all right, this guy's in it to win it. He's, in contention for those medals. Like, I think this is definitely like one of the biggest bright spots I've seen so far, I think, for Team USA in terms of how some of these athletes are feeling and looking in the first rounds. I think this is something that hopefully can carry through to the semis and the finals.
Hey guys, it has been great talking with you. And we are live right here. The street sweeper's coming, and we have to be sitting here to get the internet from the stadium. So, it's been real.
Yeah,
we really. I will turn it here. There's a hose. We're going.
It's been real. It's been real.
It's been real.
Get some sleep.
I don't know if you can see that, but this is live here right now.
We're gonna get off of the street.
Oh, yeah, he's yelling at us to get up.
Gotta go. Bye.
Okay. Fun talk with you guys.
See ya. All right.
Well, it was great to have them for a good chunk of the show, too.
Live YouTube right now.
There you go.
Our guests are getting kicked off the street in Paris, France.
Gotta love it.
Great to see. I did want to mention something from the 400s. Christopher Morales-Williams, NCAA champion from Georgia, pushed through. He had an incredible interview in the mixed zone, talking with reporters. And I just want to highlight this quote that he said, because someone asked him about, like, how does it feel and what's at stake for him. He said, if I lose, I just go back to school and continue on with my life, right? Like, but these guys are, 30 years old. They got like cars and kids. I don't have a car. I don't even have to pay for gas. So it's like, what am I doing? What do I have to worry about? Spending money on like pencils and like my scientific calculators? Morales-Williams keeping it real right after his 400-meter round. He's like, hey, I'm good after the Paris Olympics. I go back to school.
That's hilarious, actually. That's funny. Wow, that's actually a really unique perspective, especially with him going pro and kind of taking that route and be like, no big deal.
His energy level is balanced, right? He's not getting too high, so that's interesting. My I think big success story from day one of the 400s is Chris Bailey. I think seeing him qualify out of the trials, he obviously was in a position with the U.S. team. How is he going to respond in the Olympics? Goes out there, gets a Q, 44.89, and I think really made a statement that he belonged at the Olympics.
Yeah, I agree. Just looking really smooth and getting the job done, especially that first round. And as we've noticed through competitions, once that semifinal rounds comes through, which we will talk about, and I don't want to jump the gun, but we're going to be talking about it, like the notch turns up. So let's see, just get through, and we ramp it up a little bit. But let's talk about the men's 110s first before we get into the semifinals. Freddie Crittenden, I think, was the biggest highlight outside of Grant Holloway doing Grant Holloway things with running a 13:01. But I was hoping that they would be able to stay for a little bit longer, because it almost felt like a Nia Ali situation with just like, hey, repechage round, but at least at trials, like they all knew once you got on the track and just ran, you were going on, right? But like I think with Freddie, it was a little bit different. I think he might be battling through a minor injury that he's going through. So when we're watching this 110s, like, were you concerned at all? But again, he's like, hey, I just had the repechage round.
I'm glad he was open and transparent about like what his decision making process was like, because he talked with Lewis Johnson, and then he talked in the mix zone, and then he offered something on Instagram. I don't think it's necessarily an injury, Olivia. I think he clarified it as an aggravation of his abductor. So it's not like a huge issue. He thinks it can heal in a couple days, and he made a decision to basically jog the first round here and to get that extra round, the repechage rounds, because he thinks it'll be nearly back to 100% by the time he comes back to those rounds, which are on August 6th, so he's got a couple days.
Yeah, he has a couple days. I want to share this quote, and this, as you mentioned, with Lewis Johnson, I thought it was fantastic. And I quote, "It was an intentional choice. It was either get top 3 or everyone gets through to the repechage. Every athlete has a chance to go to the repechage. So I decided to not just make an emotional choice, but make a smart choice.
Yeah.
Give my body time to recover a little bit from being aggravated, lean on the medical doctors, lean on God, and just wait for the repechage round. Come out and try to kill it at the repechage round."
Yeah.
So all about the repechage round. So
Yeah.
I'm not worried if he's not worried.
Yeah.
So we're all good.
And on Instagram, I think he said, like, guys, please understand, like, don't come at me kind of thing. And it's like, I feel like athletes really feel like the pressure almost.
Oh,
like,
absolutely.
Freddie, you don't have to tell us. Like, you do you. Like, I feel like all athletes out there, you do you. You don't have to answer to anybody but yourself. Like,
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I totally agree. And by him saying that, it's like, hey, I don't want to be but I honestly appreciate, like you mentioned,
Absolutely.
the transparency, because I'm
Yeah.
like, okay, I can understand that. I still love and support you. I still loved and support him regardless of his thought process behind it. But I thought that was a very wise choice. And like you said, he does not have to let any of us know. If
Yeah.
you're strong with your decision and your friends and family support it, then by all means,
Yeah.
do what you need to do. But I do appreciate the transparency
Absolutely.
as a fan here.
Absolutely.
All right, let's talk about Grant Holloway. Did clock a 13:01. Is this the moment that he's been waiting for, that we've all been waiting for, just taking the steps toward Olympic gold?
No, well, no. The moment will be the finals.
Yeah, I
Like,
know.
You know, everything leading up to it is good. It's gravy.
Yeah.
The finals, just like Noah, is what you need.
Yeah.
That's how you're going to prove yourself, because obviously the last time he was in this situation, he did not win. And so I think he's just yearning to get back.
Right.
So
Just taking the steps.
Yeah.
And then Daniel Roberts gets the cue, finishing 15th from the rounds, 13:44. And then the reigning Olympic champion, Hansel Parchment, 13:43 with 18th, and got the little cue.
Yeah.
But again, advancing on. Any other thoughts from the 110s?
no, good stuff. Glad to see Daniel get through. Grant, dominant.
Yes.
Ready to go.
Okay, let's talk drama, because there was plenty of drama in the women's 800 meters, Corey. Just insane. I want to specifically talk about heat number 2, because you had Gemma Reekie, Shafiqua Maloney. It was insane. Juliet Whitaker, but 56 seconds for the first 400 meters? We were like, that was blazing fast. And obviously, Gemma Reekie paid for the price at the very end.
I think she was a second off where she needed to be through the first lap, and that's why she faded. But at the same time, that's faster than what Juliet probably expected, but she found some resolve out of herself, and with 80 meters to go, and she just, like, hooked it in.
Yeah.
It was incredible to see her go to the well and find a way to qualify for the final. She does this all the time now. It feels like it's like her MO at this point.
I've been watching Juliet Whitaker throughout the course of these rounds, and even Ashley was texting us saying, Juliet finds a way, because she knows how to be competitive and knows how to race. She's not just like going out there and doing her things. Like, she's being very strategic, very smart. There was one point, I think it was the first maybe 200, 250, where she was on the outside. You can literally see her slow down, move to the inside rail, and then get up to speed. And I'm like, all right, Juliet, just stick in the pack. And she was able to, and slingshot off the last 150 on that curve, and was able to solidify herself in that third position in that heat. And she also set a new personal best alongside of that too. So she is still in tip-top shape, and is also the only American in that final. Did we predict that?
157.76. No, we did not predict that.
Yeah.
I thought Nia ran
Yes.
good. I think I don't know. I think she lacked the last sort of energy level boost that Juliet showed. I mean, she was in a good position in that third heat to get a qualifier. I think there wasn't necessarily like the leg speed over the last 50 meters that would have got her there.
Yeah.
But I thought she raced a good, solid 800 meters.
I agree. One other, well, I did mention her, but really brief because Brian talked about this beforehand. But Maloney, who is from St. Vincent, went 157.59, and she told Brian in the mix zone that she was homeless, it seemed like, and was out for the first round in Tokyo, and now this is a whole new vision of just making this finals, and she is in this final now, and so we are just cheering for her and for this 800. I know we've been talking about it all year, but it's still hot, and I'm looking forward to it, despite Riki not being part of the mix, but still full of drama.
There are a lot of stories out there about the fight of athletes, just the will and fight that they have to continue in this sport.
Yeah.
It doesn't pay a lot for a lot of these athletes. You really have to dedicate yourself and find ways to get through, even if there isn't a lot of support around you. So that speaks to Maloney and her full story, that she was able to kind of express in the mix zone. I think it's a testament to still find ways to succeed at the very highest level.
Yes, agreed. All right, moving on to the women's 400-meter hurdles. Finally, we had a chance to see our top two athletes. Another big storyline going into the Olympic Games, but Femke Bol, 53.38, just a day after anchoring the mixed 4x4 for the Netherlands. Just looking smooth, as always.
Yeah, you ran 47.9 split
Just come back
4x4.
53.
Oh, you're going to cruise a little bit.
Yeah.
I think, do you feel like the 400-meter hurdles is still setting up to, provide?
Clash of the Titans.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Absolutely. All three Americans finishing in the top four. Jasmine Jones, 53.60. Sydney McLaughlin-Levrone, the world record holder in this event. Again, looking smooth, 53.60, just doing her thing. And then Anna Cockrell, 53.91. So we just did what we needed to do.
We got a semifinal
Yes.
tomorrow, and then we have it looks like, when's the final? On August 8th, it looks like. August 8th, we have the final.
Okay.
So August 6th, semifinal. August 8th is, what is it called? Judgment Day?
Yes.
McLaughlin-Levrone and Bol.
Yeah.
Judgment Day. Where does it go?
Where does it go? I think a lot of people are still leaning towards Sydney. But Femke Bol has just been looking very, very strong too, so I'm not going to count her out as well. Also, that happened this evening was the men's 1,500-meter semifinal, and not surprised by anything. No hiccups. Everyone making through, all the people that we expected, like Jakob Ingebrigtsen, Josh Kerr, Cole Hocker, Yard Naguse, Hob Kessler. Just getting into that final.
The first heat was
Interesting.
a very great, I think, plot point in this race.
I like
because
that.
we see three potential contenders for the Olympic gold medal, Ingebrigtsen, Kerr, and Hocker, all going at it. And the way they got to their positions all varied. Ingebrigtsen, for the second straight race, from the gun, goes to the back of the pack and then makes that move probably, 200, 300 meters in. And he doesn't want any sort of physical problems to start races off. Do you think that'll have any impact if he chooses to do that in the final, if he comes out in the back of the pack to begin a final, or does he have to change that strategy at all?
That's a great question. Because I feel like the 1500s today were, fair from what I expect from a semifinal. But we've talked about this. I feel like the final is just going to be wild. It's going to be fast. So is he going to be able to hang in the back, let everyone fight for a position, and then slowly make his way up? Because Josh Kerr can close. He has speed. That's my big question.
I don't think it will. I offer the question, and I'll answer it to myself here. I don't think it'll impact him because I think he's going to make a move early on Kerr.
Okay.
I think we are going to see a fast race where he's really going to push the pace on Kerr, and he's going to force Kerr into going into the well a little bit, and maybe make him uncomfortable. I think Ingebrigtsen's at this place right now that he wants to make those guys uncomfortable.
So are you calling Jakob Ingebrigtsen as the 1,500-meter champion
did.
early?
I already
Is that
did.
what you're calling?
I already did.
Okay.
I already did.
I still feel like Josh Kerr.
Yeah.
I feel like Josh Kerr's going to play a very smart race.
They both look incredible.
Everyone looks great.
Fit,
Everyone looks great.
Fit as a feather. Cole Hocker, awesome. Yared Naguse looked great in Heat 2 today. I thought he looked spectacular. I think we're going to have a fired-up final in the 1500.
Fired up final. I like that. Sounds great. 3 more events to highlight. The women's 3K, the world champion Finfred Yavi won her heat 9:15.11. You also had the world silver medalist Beatrice Chepikech 9:13.56. USA's Courtney Wayman and Valerie Kostin earned the Q. Unfortunately, Marissa Howard, who just had a very unique story going into the Olympic Games, was just outside the qualifying spot. And again, 1,500 meters and down had the repechage round, so anything above that distance does not have it. So Miss Howard's journey to the Olympic Games ended today, but ran a 9:24.78 for this event.
Yeah, she got detached in that race with a K to go, and she couldn't recover from that point. So tough to see. Waymont, 9:10 to run. I think finishing 4th, 9:10. Really great time overall. I think she's ready to compete potentially, for a podium spot. I think. I mean, world record's under 9 minutes, so it depends on how fast it goes.
Yeah.
But if it is a little bit more tactical, then I think Waymont has a shot.
I think so too. We can have someone from the U.S. on the podium in this event. Women's hammer. We got, I feel like, Deanna Price doing great things. Annette finishing 3rd and 4th just to qualify as round. But Finland's Krista Trevo, who actually threw a national record in this event, is the top of the leaderboard right now from this morning with a 74.79 meter toss. And then you have Cameron Rogers of Canada, who was 5th at the Tokyo Olympic Games, is 2nd going into the finals with a 74.69 throw. And then Aaron Reese just misses the final by finishing 14th from Team USA. But nonetheless, we have 2 wonderful athletes representing us there in that final.
Men's long jump.
Men's long jump.
What do we got there?
Well, let's talk about Jarian Lawson, because my heart just really had no mark today. No mark. And I know he was I know everyone is excited to compete, but I know we did a workout Wednesday with him, so we've had, time to really connect with him on the ground before he got on the flight to Paris, and he's like, yeah, I'm ready to compete, things are looking good. And then to come here and not be able to get at least a mark in really just hurts.
It's tough. You get 3 preliminary jumps in the first round, and I think you want to get your first one out there on the board. Just make sure you get a mark out there, but it looks like he had problems getting on the board, and he just couldn't figure it out by the time his 3rd attempt was there. So really tough to see because he is one of those guys that really has blossomed within the long jump over the last couple of years.
Yes, he really has. But the top 3 athletes in this long jump going into the finals is Greece's Matalidis Tenegalo, 8.32 meters. Radek Juska, 8.15 for a season's best. And then Jinian Wang, 8.12 for a season's best. So still lots of great action to get through. Great. This was day 4 officially.
Yep.
3rd day officially on the track. But nonetheless, lots of amazing highlights, moments. Champions are being crowned, ringing the bell too. I love that. I love that we get to see that as part of it too.
Nice little touch.
Yeah, but Corey and I will be back here, and we have a special guest joining us tomorrow. Let me actually pull up my doc so I don't.
We got Mondo in the pole vault tomorrow.
Oh yes, Mondo.
We got women's discus throw, which means we got Allman in the discus throw, and then we got women's 800-meter final, 5K final as well.
Gosh. And to join us for the podcast tomorrow, we're going to have Evan Jager joining us.
Go.
Let's go.
Let's go.
So he will be calling in tomorrow for our show. And again, we will be live. So don't go too far.
This is amazing.
This is going to be awesome. So tomorrow's going to be another great day. So get some rest. Corey and I will see you back here tomorrow, and have a wonderful rest of your day.